Hello, everyone. Welcome. I hope you're doing well. Put for me in the chat where you're tuning from. I know I am 5 minutes early, but I always like to check my tech and make sure that everything is good. So just let me know in the chat where you're tuning from. So, yes. Oh my God, Amy, how's it going? And Larry, Chicago. Yay. Well, thank you, friends, for being here on December 30th, literally, 2 days from New Year's. So exciting. I can tell you're all dedicated when it comes to your career, and you definitely want to have a better 2026. So, if you don't know me, my name is Nada Bohendi, and today we're talking about something that's affecting every single leader in the market right now. I mean, who did not have the most amazing 2025? Put for me in the chat if your 2025 wasn't the best and you want to make 2026 awesome. And this is what we're here about when it comes to your career, because what I'm going to be talking to you about are some of the job market trends that I've noticed after helping over 1,000 leaders, and also what I've noticed from the labor bureau, some of the things that I'm seeing in my own clients that I want to share with you as someone who is a career transition expert and has been in this world. Now, if you are an accomplished leader who's feeling stuck, undervalued, or feel like you're operating below your potential, this is definitely for you. Because today, what I'm going to talk about is why conventional career advice is actually making things worse. What's actually happening in the market, especially with the emergence of AI and the massive layoffs that you've all been noticing, and what to do instead. So let us dive in. I know I'm like 2 minutes still early, but I'm just going to dive in. Okay, so I put together this model that's going to help you all understand this. So if you are in consulting and you love frameworks and models, yay, this is for you. Okay, so let's talk about what's going on. There are 3 mega trends that I've been noticing in the market in 2026. Who here has noticed that compared to your parents, it's just a completely different employment model where your parents might have stayed in the same company almost all of their life. They've climbed the ladder at one company for more than 30 years, and they've been able to happily retire with pension and healthcare. But when you think about your situation, that is completely different, right? Anyone here has noticed that? That's the old deal. Company loyalty equals job security, climb the ladder at one company for 30 years, retire at 65. But the new reality that I've noticed between, let us say, the end of 2022 all the way till this year, right, is that we've seen layoffs every 18 to 24 months. I've had clients who are high achievers that I've helped, let's say in 2021, who have gotten laid off in 2023, right? Even high performers are getting cut. Think about the massive layoffs that happened in the big tech. And then the other new reality is that there are less ladders to climb. Flat structures eliminated layers. In fact, we are in an era where middle management is collapsing. And people at the very bottom are being replaced with AI for certain aspects. I'm not going to, be one of those, fear mongers and tell you that you're basically sorry, Jessica, that you missed the beginning. It's okay. You didn't really miss much. What I was saying, I'm just going to quickly recap, is that we are in a different world when it comes to the hiring process. Okay. The 50-year employment model that defined careers is extinct. What do I mean by that? The old, if I'm loyal at my organization, I'm going to have job security. I'm going to climb the ladder at one company for 30 years. Yeah, I've had a client who actually was in the same company for 31 years. Or the old paradigm of people retiring at 65 with pension and healthcare. That model is dead. Okay. You all may have noticed this in 2023, massive layoffs, right? Yes, middle management. Going live is difficult to do. Hats off to you. Yes, middle management is tagged now. Yeah, exactly. All right. So here's the new reality. We all need to be entrepreneurial in our career. Okay. I have clients who are 50 and above, leaving 24 careers, but needing 20 to 3 more years of income. In fact, 50% of my clients are above 50, and I even have clients that are over 60. The other thing is that mid-career professionals are realizing that job security is dead, and everyone is navigating uncharted territory with no roadmap. So the old employment model that our parents relied on is gone. Now, there's good news and there's bad news. The bad news is obviously is more difficult than when it used to be. The good news is you're not alone. Everyone is going through this. And everyone is having difficulty making these career decisions because of the state of instability that they've never experienced before. Okay, so I call this the death of the corporate social contract. Why? Because we are in an era where really you should treat even your permanent role as a contract, and you need to treat your career like an entrepreneur. Alrighty. Megatrend number 2, the AI displacement of knowledge work. What do I mean by that? AI is eliminating an entire class of work. This is comparable to industrialization, eliminating farm jobs, or automation eliminating manufacturing. So here's what's happening. AI is automating cognitive work at scale. So a lot of you, felt that you could differentiate yourselves by taking certifications, by having more knowledge. But now knowledge is at our fingertips. Anyone can go to GPT AI and get information fast. So what's happening is if that's the only thing you bring to the table, if you don't bring the ability to make decisions, if you don't bring the ability to communicate effectively, if you don't bring the ability to manage, then you can be replaceable easily, right? The other thing that's happening with AI is people can no longer hide by being mediocre. Think about it, especially in large organizations. And I've seen this as someone who's been in large organizations. I've worked at Deloitte, I've worked at Accenture, I've worked at Fortune 500 organizations. I've worked with companies, like Michael Kors, across retail, healthcare, you name it, for 15 years. And have you ever seen those people who you wonder, like, how is it possible that this person is actually in this company for so many years? Because they were able to hide. And it makes it easy when you're at a large organization. But now they can no longer do that. No longer do that. You become exposed. And this is why, we're starting to see even more layoffs. The other thing that is happening is MBAs, multiple degrees, no longer differentiate you. Knowledge is commoditized. ChatGPT has it all at your fingertips. I mean, I know people who, use, Claude to code right now, right? To do incredible things. And what you know actually matters less than what you create and do with it. It's easy to get knowledge. It's easy to spit out the knowledge and regurgitate it, but it's harder to actually prove that you've done the work. So, because of what's happening with AI as well, there are more people who are going through career pivots, and everyone is jumping on the AI wave to make themselves relevant. So, what does that mean? Leaders who build careers on expertise, credentials are competing with AI and people who are a lot younger. Knowledge you are paying certifications for is being replaced by AI. And you can no longer coast on, I have 15 years of experience anymore. The leaders who survive, what do they have? Who can tell me? Leaders who survive are the ones who articulate their irreplaceable strategic value. I want to give you a very simple analogy, right? Let's think about, for example, Meta. When they had a huge reputational issue, before they had the huge reputational issue, they were called Facebook. And all they had to do to regain people's trust and get more people using their services and products and to bring their stock up was to rename themselves to Meta and repackage the way they tell their story, right? And that's exactly what you need to do. So when you think the solution is, I'm just going to try to pivot to AI, the thing that you need to understand is that everyone is doing that. And there is actually a massive saturation in roles that seemed future-proof. To move up, you don't compete with knowledge, you actually compete with experience and evidence that you've built something and created outcomes. So here's the result. The very expertise that got you to where you are today is actually being automated and commoditized. This is why you need to redefine your value entirely. Okay, so who resonates with megatrend number 1 and who resonates with megatrend number 2? Megatrend number 1 in terms of the death of the corporate contract and the job security. Megatrend number 2, the AI displacement of knowledge work. Which one scares you the most? I'm very curious. Put that down for me in the chat. 1 or 2? Type 1 or type 2? Okay, cool. Let us now talk about megatrend number 3. I see 1. Okay, Kevin. 2. It's kind of almost an even number. All right, very interesting. Lots of people concerned about AI. Okay, we will address that very shortly. Now, let me tell you about megatrend number 3. Megatrend number 3 is something that you actually need to pay attention to. A lot of you ignore it. Megatrend number 3 is what I call the great refusal. This is a company cultural aspect. So in the old days, we used to revolve our lives around work. Our ancestors, they would go to work. They didn't derive any meaning or fulfillment from their work. I mean, if you think about our ancestors, what kind of work did they do? Maybe farming, maybe something that's not technological, maybe doesn't have as much of a widespread, social impact. And even when we got into industrialization, the whole thing was that you serve the company, you're loyal, you give them everything. And, it's not so much about moving up or finding joy. But as we have, especially after the pandemic, what has happened when we decided to work, or when we had to work remotely, we started realizing, wow, I have been missing out on so much. I have been sacrificing so much of my time to these organizations, commuting. you know you realize how nice it is to actually run errands during the day, or to actually show up for your kids earlier at school, right? So this entire generational values revolution fundamentally changed what people can tolerate. People are no longer willing to sacrifice their lives for work. Flexibility, work-life balance became non-negotiable. Every time I get on a call with someone, on a consultation or otherwise, I keep hearing, I want to be able to work remotely. It doesn't have to be every day. Some people want to work remotely 100%. Others say like a minimum of like 2 days a week I can work remotely, right? I call it the post-pandemic awakening. Yes, there will be a replay. I will share it. If you've registered, you'll get the email. But I recommend that you stay till the end, because people who stay till the end are actually going to get my GPT, which is going to help you with your positioning. Okay. The other thing that people won't tolerate is toxic environments. And they won't sit in 9 to 5, in an office 9 to 5 just for optics. People want meaningful work, not just a paycheck. They want roles that fit their lives, not lives that fit their roles. And there is a generational shift where boomers, actually this is changing because I do have clients who are boomers, but in the past, boomers lived to work. And now Gen X, millennials, Gen Z work to live. So what does that mean to you is that leaders like you want roles where they're valued and have flexibility. You're unwilling to destroy your health for bosses who gaslight you. You refuse to optimize for someone else's limited vision. You've developed intolerance for mediocrity in leadership. You're also done being the chameleon, adapting to parasitic systems. What do I mean by being a chameleon? Adapting, ignoring your needs, just saying yes to whatever they say, even though you know that your organization is making horrible decisions just to survive. So leaders want roles where they're recognized, compensated fairly, and have the life they want, but don't know how to find or negotiate for that without seeming uncommitted. Let me know in the chat if that resonates with you. Megatrend number 3, the great refusal. Do you as a leader refuse to work in horrible conditions and to feel like you are, there's no other way for me to say this, friends. I mean, it's before New Year's Day, and I think my sugarcoating abilities have evaporated, but you don't want to feel like you're part of a herd of sheep, right? Just following, another sheep. So you want to actually work at an organization that makes smart decisions, right? So let me know in the chat if that is what you want. I am getting true. Don't sugarcoat it. There's no wine right now. It's too early for wine. Okay, so here's the perfect storm. You can't rely on job security. You can't rely on credentials. You can't sacrifice your life for work. That's megatrend number 3. And so leaders are stuck trying to find roles that pay what they're worth, value their experience, offer flexibility and meaning, won't disappear in 18 months, don't require them to abandon themselves. Now, here's the problem. And let me go into the next part of my model. Let us see here if I can do this properly. All right, let's go into the next part of the model. I'm going to call it the contrarian approach. Now, if you don't want to be part of the herd of sheep, you need to think differently. You need to do things differently, right? Otherwise, you're just going to get the same results as everyone else in the market. So let me talk to you about why conventional advice that you're getting in the market is failing. This is what I call the conventional career coaching advice. And I'm not, it's kind of ironic because I am a career coach. I'm not necessarily just talking about career coaches. I'm also talking about what you're hearing from friends, from recruiters, from hiring managers, from mentors, etc. Right? Let's go with conventional approach number one that you are constantly being told whenever you feel like you're unhappy with your job. What's the first thing people tell you when you talk to your friends and you say, hey, I don't know if I want to stay in this job. I'm not happy. The first thing they say to you is update your resume and network more. The advice. You end up applying to 100 jobs. Maybe, you wait for when you're on vacation and you start going onto this rampage of applying to 100 jobs, tailoring your resume, going on ChatGPT, stuffing it with keywords. And, because you're told it's a numbers game, the more you put yourself out there, the more you're going to be successful. But here's the thing. Volume doesn't work when you're not positioned correctly. Okay? I want you to think about it this way. Let us say you are watching TV and this very annoying ad starts playing. It's for something that you absolutely don't want to buy. What are you going to do? You're going to mute it, or you're going to turn off the TV or switch to another channel until that freaking ad just disappears. And that's exactly what's happening with your resume when a hiring manager or recruiter sees it. When you're sending out a resume that doesn't align with what the hiring manager needs, you're actually not increasing your chances. You are annoying them. Do you know how many times I talk to recruiters and they tell me, I'm so tired of seeing the same thing over and over and over again. Or I really wish people would just read the job posting because they're not the right fit. They're not addressing what we're looking for. And I'm not saying this to you to make you feel bad, because you absolutely should put yourself out there. However, when you put yourself out there the wrong way and you don't know what you want, and you are counting on the hiring manager and recruiter to actually tell you what's available and what might be the right fit for you, this is exactly what's happening. I'm going to give you another analogy. Let us say that you're looking for a contractor to paint your home. Let us say that you live in a condo and you want someone who specializes in painting condos, because with condos, there are special requirements. It's a tight space, there's going to be a lot of moving furniture, things like that. Maybe there's a dog like mine who's annoying and barks. You need someone who actually knows how to navigate that, right? So if you really, really need that contractor, wouldn't you be happy if someone actually called you, even if it was a cold call, and says, hey, I specialize in painting condos and I'm really good with dogs and I can paint in very tight spaces? You'd be like, oh my God, you're a godsend. I'm so happy that you called me, right? But if you don't need that and you live in a big house and you just painted your house, like a month ago, and you keep getting calls from people who, let's say, are painters, you're going to get annoyed. And so that's the thing. The thing that I want you to understand is that it's not about volume, it's about fit. And fit is based on how you position yourself as the solution to someone's problem. So here's why more applications, more networking, and more of putting yourself out there doesn't work. In an unstable environment, we talked about mega trend number one. Remember, mega trend number one is job instability. In an unstable market, volume doesn't work. Positioning wins. You need to approach your career like an entrepreneur, not an employee. A lot of people talk to me about marketing, right? And essentially, this is what you're doing. Think about organizations. They need to market their services. When you get that, email from guests and they say, hey, 50% discount, or, recently I've been getting a lot of these like emails and ads about these, butcher boxes. And they keep saying that, hey, it saves you gas money. You won't have to go to the store. You won't have to be in the crowds. You won't have to be exposed to the cold. That's aligned to my needs, right? But if these people didn't understand what I needed, I would find them annoying, right? And so what positioning is actually, the definition of positioning is very simple. So for those of you who are not in product and don't understand what I mean by positioning, positioning really is how people perceive you, your reputation, how they see you fit in the market. It's beyond keywords and resumes. And if you don't understand that concept, all you're doing is you're creating noise. Okay, why also is volume not helpful is because keywords don't differentiate you anymore. What differentiates you is how you tell your story. Now, I'll give you a very simple example. If I was a sales director and I was interviewing for a role and I simply said I increased sales tremendously, would that help me stand out? Would you hire me? I mean, be honest. Tell me. No, right? Now, here's another example. If I said to you, I increase sales by 50%, would you hire me? Also, no. Because you're going to want to know, well, how do you do it? Prove it to me. I need evidence, right? And the story is the evidence. So if I said something like, hey, when I was on this initiative at Slalom, I was able to accelerate the go-to market by 5 months. And so how I did this was I realized that I only had like 5 team members. We were a very small team. And we also didn't want to disappoint the client. We came up with this phased approach where I got the team to build the out-of-the-box functionality while I was doing the discovery with the clients. So by the time we get the requirements from the clients, we can hit the ground running and not waste time and build the product. So you see what I did? I told a story. I shared with you my unique approach, and I gave you evidence of the outcome that I created. Make sense? Cool. The other reason why volume doesn't help is because all you're doing is you're pretending to be someone else. If you're just applying to all these jobs when they have horrible culture and you're just going there for the sake of, I need a job, then you're just going to repeat the same thing over and over again that you went through, which is not fun. And believe me when I say it's not fun, because I lived through it. I lost half of my pancreas due to a very toxic culture. Now, you might be thinking, well, okay, Nada, so I'll just hire a resume company to fix this for me. But here's actually what happens when you do that. I'm going to share with you a clip, and I want you to listen to it. This is one of my clients who shared a resume writer, and this is what happened.
Embody the things that I was looking for in my resume to present. And so So, Nada, I felt like I was at the end of the road. I had made a decision that my job no longer suited me, and I actually had hired a resume writing company to
Wow.
assist me. And I did not feel like they met my needs. They didn't really embody the things that I was looking for in my resume to present. And so I knew that whatever they had provided me wasn't going to cut it. And so I just started doing a lot of research. And your name came up as actually one who has really helped people kind of grow and really just kind of focus on bringing yourself out of that imposter syndrome and really just kind of highlighting your true value. And so that is how I ended up finding your services and working with you, which was a great experience.
All right. So here's the important point to note in terms of what Stephanie said. She hired a resume writing company, and they didn't really truly understand her or represent her, because here's what happens. And I see this a lot. And again, I'm not saying that resume companies are necessarily all bad, but the typical process that you all need to pay attention to is they actually don't spend time understanding who you are, what you're targeting, and if this is the right pathway for you. In fact, I recently talked to someone who shared with me that he's working with a company. It's been a couple of weeks, and they're not challenging him on his approach in terms of what he's targeting. He's doing some kind of A/B testing where he is testing an operations, basically persona of himself and targeting operations roles, and also testing basically a customer experience type of persona to see what sticks. And yes, I get the whole, I don't want to pigeonhole myself and that kind of thing. But I want you to think for a moment of all of the best ads that are out there. Do they try to target every freaking person on earth? A lot of you are in product. Do you build products for every single persona, or do you figure out who your persona is, right? So there are nuances. And here's what bothers me about a lot of these resume companies is they don't challenge you. It's almost like if you worked with a dietitian and the dietitian says, well, let's do some A/B testing. One week, we're going to put you on the keto diet. And then the next week, we're going to put you on a high carb diet. And then we'll see which one works. And you end up losing a lot of momentum, right? So when you are trying to target multiple personas and you don't even understand who you are, you haven't made peace with the toxicity of what you've been through at an organization, you haven't sorted through all of this stuff, what the inputs that you're going to give to that resume company is going to be watered down. It's not going to represent who you are. You're just going to give all of the surface level achievements that you've done, and you're not going to go deep enough. That is the problem. You are going to end up discounting yourself. And I'm also going to share with you again what Stephanie shared. By the way, Stephanie is a client that I worked with at the director level. She ended up landing a VP level after working with me. And the reason I want you to listen to what she says is because I want to give you hope that this is something that you can change. And a lot of this is mindset shift. Okay, so I'll share with you what happened here. To repositioning yourself, and how do you feel that I was one of the big hurdles that I see a lot of leaders struggle with is positioning themselves, finding their superpower. I've always been passionate about that because I feel like if you're not clear on that, it's really hard to attract the right opportunities. What do you feel was the hardest thing for you when it comes to repositioning yourself? And how do you feel that I was able to help you overcome that?
Yeah, so the hardest thing for me, again, was knowing my value and what I could bring to the table and how I could help, a business continue to grow. I think that was the hardest for me because I just I saw myself as someone who, I've managed, 50 or so people, and I was in that role, but I didn't feel confident because I think I allowed myself to get so caught up and be torn down. And so what you helped me to do is just realize my value. You help build us up just through the exercises and helping us to just better understand like what you bring to the table, like what you've been doing really can contribute to the overall growth of a company. And you do bring value, and don't discount yourself, right?
Yeah.
Remember, you bring a lot to the table. And I think I discounted myself, and you helped me to really open my eyes and see, wait a minute, I've done all this stuff. I can go to another company and do it again.
Okay, so who here has been in a toxic environment that made them doubt themselves? I know that that happened to me. And this is a pattern that I honestly see in every high performer, especially in high performers, because a lot of you are so hard on yourselves. When you're in a toxic environment where you're not getting enough recognition, you're not like, your boss will always fixate on what you did wrong and mention it. But then when you do the right things, when you achieve amazing things, it's ignored. So what do you start telling yourself? You're always hard on yourself. This is why when you're working with a resume writer and all of these things are not resolved, all of these things are not talked through, you forget what you've done. It's almost like you have amnesia, right? And you're told that, oh, it must have been easy for you to do this. I had a client who's a VP of finance, and she had such a narcissistic boss. It was insane, like to the point where she started developing back pain and she was sick all the time. Whenever she did such a great job, her boss wouldn't actually acknowledge it or recognize her for it. The boss would simply tell her, oh, it must have been easy for you to do. Right? And so when you're going through all of this, it erodes your confidence. And of course, you're going to forget what you've done. And what you need is someone who can recognize that, help you peel all of those layers, and be able to actually see the value of what you've done, and ask you the right questions to elicit that. And that's what we did with Stephanie. Because the problem isn't your resume, the problem is you've lost sight of your value. Okay, so what else are leaders trying? And actually, I want to show you this clip too. Let me see. Toxic environments. I want you to hear this because I want you to see that you're not alone. It seems so simple at the surface level, but it's so hard for people to, navigate this challenge. Why do you think is that? I'm so curious from your perspective.
I think it's a couple of reasons. I think for me, number one was just you work in an environment where you don't feel appreciated, and you have to learn how to still be able to get your job done, excel, and not worry about is someone giving you the accolades. Yes, you want that, but overall, you have to know that you've done a good job. So I think for me, that was the one thing. They have their way of doing things, and they don't want to give someone else new an opportunity, or sometimes they don't want to listen to other ideas. And I think just breaking through that, you've gone through that enough times and you're like, wait a minute, do I know what I'm talking about? But then just not questioning yourself. Like, I know I've done this. I've done more. I've multitasked and done more. So it just gave me a sense of like, again, I mean, I hate to sound like a broken record, but just really just doing some soul searching, understand like, Stephanie, you can do this. You have to have confidence in yourself. You have to look at, your wins and not focus on your failures, but look at your wins and how you impacted and contributed, and then you can move forward. And once I was able to do that, I think I was able to break through. Now it did take time, but I was able to have some breakthrough after that.
So there's a thing that I talk about with my clients, which is start with your fear, not your why. If you're not able to face your fears and articulate, some of the, I call it PTSD that you've gone through in the workplace, it actually blocks you from being able to articulate your value. And one of the exercises that I do with my clients is a journaling exercise called Chunks of 10, where I get my clients to journal all of the different moments that have happened in their life and their career. And we connect the dots based on that so that it's not surface level. Because the issue is with a lot of like career coaches and resume writers is they almost like isolate who you are from what you've done in your career. And those two need to come together. Okay, so the other conventional approach that I've talked about is getting more certifications, upskilling. But here's the truth. If 10,000 people have the same certification as you, how does that make you stand out? It doesn't. Certifications are commoditized at this point. And here's the problem. When you keep collecting certifications, you're actually avoiding the real issue. And the real issue is you don't know how to articulate your value. You don't know how to package your experience. Think about like a beautiful glass bottle that has water in it and it's handed over to you in a restaurant, and a glass of water, right? A glass of water is not packaged nicely. And so your perception of it is going to be different than a beautiful, bottled glass of water. You're going to feel like, wow, this is luxurious, this is expensive. And that's what packaging does. So instead of doing that work of learning how to articulate your value and package your experience, you just go get another certification. And it's just a distraction. Because here's the deal. Credentials don't protect you from layoffs. You need to position yourself as someone who solves problems, not someone who collects credentials. AI can pass the same certification you have now that knowledge is commoditized. You need to prove mastery. You need to show evidence that you've achieved outcomes through storytelling. You don't need to upskill. You need to reposition because you already have mastery. You just don't know how to articulate it properly. Okay, I'm going to talk about conventional approach number 3, which is work with a recruiter or generic coach. So here's the thing. Recruiters, the best analogy that I can give you, especially if you are in tech, if you build products for customers, or if you're a developer even, and the customer actually told you how to build the product. They know what they want, but they don't know how to build the product. And that's what recruiters do. Okay. They know what they're looking for, but they don't know how to teach you how to basically give them what they're looking for. The other issue with generic career coaches is a lot of them, in my experience, having mentored some of them, and even having been in certification programs with them, is that they're kind of like English teachers who wordsmith your resume. They don't really understand positioning. And why I say this, go to their websites, go on their LinkedIn. How many of them actually market themselves? How many of them tell their story? How many of them understand how to actually build an audience and how to generate demand and interest? The fact that you guys are here 2 days before New Year's Day is proof of what good marketing is. Good marketing is not about being salesy. Good marketing is about telling a story that creates awareness, shifts people's perception, and helps them understand how you can solve their problem, right? And that's exactly what you need to do. All right. So the conventional advice says update your resume, get more certifications. That world no longer exists. So what do you do instead? Let's talk about the new approach real quick, and then I'm going to do the demo of my GPT. All righty, let's see where it is. Okay, here we go. Bring this back to stage. Okay. And what I want to say before I go into the my approach in terms of what you should do instead is what you really need to do is you need to own your career sweet spot. Honestly, if I could give you one takeaway, that's what you need to do. So when I work with clients, there are three things that I focus on. Number one, I call it pattern recognition. So what do we mean by pattern recognition? A lot of us, we are humans. We're not robots. We carry emotions, we carry experiences, we have psychological, there's psychological impact on us. And what happens is we're almost stuck in what I call childhood survival patterns. I know that growing up in the Middle East with hard ass parents who wanted me either to be a doctor or engineer, is I developed this validation seeking. Okay. It's codependency where I constantly want, validation from bosses who'll never give it. The other childhood survival pattern that I brought was achievement addiction, thinking one certification will make me ready. And I would keep learning and taking one certification after the other to be able to cope. Okay. And I would find myself in environments that validate that, which is not good. Fear of abandonment. I would stay in toxic jobs because I didn't want to be alone, because I was scared of, like, maybe I developed a few friends in that company. I got comfortable and I was scared of leaving even when it didn't serve me. A lot of these are childhood survival patterns. And what I do with clients is I help them recognize these patterns, because if you don't recognize them, you're just going to keep jumping from one job to the other and creating those environments again and attracting them. So we do the deep work first. We see the pattern, we interrupt it. The second thing that we do is what we call strategic repositioning. This is where we position you as category of one. What do we mean by category of one? It means that based on the experiences that you've had, the companies that you've worked for, you're a snowflake. Like no other person like you has the same childhood, worked at the same companies, built whatever you've built, right? Has your strengths, has your story. No one but you. You're the only person who can do a specific role better than anyone else. You just need to figure out what it is. And you need to be able to articulate this unique combination. So what we do is we extract your mastery. We package your mastery. We position you strategically in a way where a recruiter or a hiring manager is going to be like, oh my God, you are a unicorn. Where have you been? We've been looking for you. And actually, one of my clients, his name is Rashid, he landed at MongoDB, which is a very competitive company. Thousands and thousands of applicants. He applied cold. He did not network or had a referral. And he was picked out of thousands of people at a remote company where he can literally work anywhere in the world, because he had a combination of skill set and experiences and story that made that company feel like, oh my God, you're exactly what we're looking for. Okay. And I know this kind of sounds corny, but just like how we talk about every person has like a perfect, partner out there, like your perfect partner is not going to be someone else's perfect partner, right? Your soulmate is not going to be someone else's soulmate. And that's what you need to figure out. Like, stop copying everyone else and chasing trends. That's not going to help you. It might temporarily make you feel good about yourself, but in the end, it's not sustainable. Which takes me to the third thing, body intelligence. Your body is smarter than your ambition. When you're operating below your potential, when you're in a toxic environment, your body will force a reckoning. I will tell you that because of the amount of stress that I've gone through for 15 years in my career, lost half of my pancreas, it all built up. And maybe, some of you might be below 30 or below 35 and you can get away with it. You can pull the all-nighters, you can cry yourself to sleep. But eventually, as you get older, it's going to show. Like, this is why I developed migraines earlier this year, because all of that 15-year career accumulated and caused me basically vestibular migraines. And so you got to listen to your body. When you go to work and you have that weird, feeling in your stomach, or you're noticing that you're getting more sick, that's not weakness. That is the intelligence of your body. Your body is protecting you from accepting less than your worth, and you need to honor that. This is why I always tell people, don't wait until things get bad, because then it just becomes difficult to make things move fast, right? What you want to do is build an exit strategy. This is how we create leverage while you're employed. We don't just quit desperately. We don't start thinking about our career when things get very, very bad. We do it ahead of time. And this is what I do differently than 99% of career coaches. I don't give you tactics. I give you pattern recognition, strategic repositioning, body intelligence, all three together. So let me play for you a clip of a story of one of my clients who actually landed at Meta. She was in policy for more than 12 years, yet with no tech experience, she was able to land an AI role at Meta. And here is her advice.
So I was actually on a beach in New Zealand, which is a terrible place to think about this sort of change. I had spent 12 years working in the nonprofit academic space in international development and humanitarian work. And I was sitting on this beach and I was thinking, well, maybe I'll be a journalist, or maybe I'll be a nurse, or AI is really interesting. And I kind of forced myself to start thinking seriously about it. I poked around on a few career coaches, had some one-on-ones, and none were really speaking to me. I think they were all focused on like, I'll help you revamp your resume and ship it off. And I was thinking, I'm in a much different space. I'm in like life transition kind of place. I need something more holistic. And that's when I came across your podcast. And I remember listening to almost every single episode.
Oh my God.
And thinking, whoa, she's saying everything that I need. Like, I have to talk to this woman. It demystified career transitions, and it was very specific to the personal journey that you go through when you're looking towards a career transition. The thing that I've walked away from is storytelling and thinking critically about what you've worked on and what your expertise looks like is about moving your mindset away from that narrative that you've had of your career the whole time you've been in your career, which is, I work in this sector, I've worked on these projects, and you've built that resume in your mind for your whole career. And then you go to talk to someone new who's in this new sector or in this new industry or hiring for a new role, and you still have that rote memorized story about yourself, and it's really valuable. Like, I don't think it's bad to, this is a good thing, you've worked so hard to build up this story, but you need to be telling someone a new story. And so you have to find that story within you and within your experiences. And I think that's where you helped me. I call it like shape shifting, but it's not like in a negative way that you're putting on this front or this show. It's really about, okay, yes, you worked on that, but we're going to like flip it upside down, look at that one aspect of how you worked on that, with whom, for what objectives, and talk about that instead of some of the other aspects that maybe you've been focusing on and shining a light on for so many years. Even in my career now, like at work, thinking about, wait, what story do I want to tell about my impact or my successes? And do I want to tell it like that? Or am I going to focus on this other part that someone might want to hear about? And both stories have different value. One is good for me, and maybe one is good for my boss, right?
Wonderful. What I like about what she says about the shape shifting is all of your stories matter. And I think some of us think that our story doesn't matter. It's not that it doesn't matter, it's that you need to repackage it and tell the parts that matter to your audience. Okay, having said that, I know you've all been amazing and you've been staying till the end. So I want to quickly, my storytelling is so bad right now. I literally freeze because my brain floods with details. Totally, Kevin. I really hear you. And believe me, like if you had told me like 6 years ago that you'd be doing a live and in front of like 45,000 followers, I would have said, you're crazy. There's no way I'm going to do it. It takes a lot of practice, but also working with a coach who gives you the right process to tell you the story is so important. Actually, I want to quickly share with you tips on how to tell your story, and what better than my client, Stephanie. She actually shares an example of a story that she told the hiring manager. What do you feel was the hardest thing for you when it comes to telling your story?
The hardest thing is remembering the stuff that I contribute to. And not thinking that like something you may think is small and it doesn't matter, actually did contribute to bottom lines, did contribute to getting projects out of the door. So just remembering that and remembering your role and understanding like what you brought to the table. I think for me, that was how I was able to finally get out of that. I mean, your process helped me so much just in terms of like realizing when I first became a manager, the obstacles that I had to go through. And then afterwards, with, asserting myself in the role and then starting to gain the respect of, my peers as well as those, above me in senior management, then it was like, you know what, Stephanie? You did do a lot. You were able to you have a story to tell. And so that kind of helped me. Like once I sat there and thought about it and thought like, life hasn't just been roses or your career hasn't been roses, but it's not how you initially go into it, but how you finish, right? So how you finish. And so when I was able to finish and figure out like sort of that secret sauce of how do you balance and you interact with your team, you're knowledgeable, you help support your team. When I was able to find that balance, I was able to overcome some of my struggles. And that was like one of my first stories of tell me about yourself. Is that's the one thing that really resonated with me is like how it was challenging for me when I became a manager because at the time, my manager was like, hey, you're going to be the new manager. So these people that you've been working with and they're your peers, they now report to you. And he just sent an email and said, here you go. And the team was upset. And so we were able to work through it and get through it. And I was able to show them the value that I could help bring, show them the value they bring. Also, we were able to be creative and collaborate with other teams. And once they were able to see that, it was a breakthrough for me and my team. And so I needed to share that story with future employers and it's resonating. So
That's amazing.
it served its purpose. And, you did a good job of preparing me for that.
That's beautiful. All right. So, key takeaway from what Stephanie shared is that a lot of you worry too much about not doing enough in your career. And really, the bottom line is that talking about the adversity that you've gone through is equally important. Okay. That's what actually shows the evidence in many cases. Okay, I am going to demonstrate real quick my GPT, which you're all going to get access to. So I'm going to share with you a few things about this GPT that you can play around with. You're going to have 7 days access to this GPT. Obviously, a prerequisite to using this GPT effectively is you actually need to know what role you're targeting, right? If you're just taking this and building multiple copies of your resume and you're not clear about your superpowers and what you're targeting, the GPT is not going to have a wave a magic wand, right? This is only one of the many tools in my program that I use to help people expedite the process, but we don't skip the process of identifying the ideal role and what your value proposition is. This tool doesn't do that. This tool comes in after we're clear on the role that you're targeting. Now, how does this work? So here's a job posting that I found. I'm going to copy it. And I'm going to say, I want to start by analyzing a job posting. So it's going to ask you to paste the full job posting text here. Press enter. So my client and I, one of my clients and I joke about this. He actually used this tool a few days ago because he was kind of stuck in terms of remembering what he's done and all of that good stuff. And he said, wow, this is like your brain, because I literally put my entire, I will say like 50% of my brain in here in terms of the sequence of things that you need to go through in order to craft a great story. The first thing is obviously taking the job posting. And a lot of people don't understand job postings, don't read job postings very well. They don't understand what the role is looking for. And so you see the GPT made this easy. It pulled out 9 core themes that this product manager eBay role is hiring for. You can see that it's split it into different themes. CEO level ownership of an experience, right? They need someone who can own an end-to-end surface like a business, vision, roadmap, execution, accountability. The story, your stories must show you owned a surface, funnel, or program, not just features. Own channels, expertise, deep emphasis on save communications, notification, life cycle messaging. So basically it shows you what your stories need to show. And then once it breaks that down for you, which makes it so much easier, then it will give you a strategy in terms of what stories you need to tell to map to those 2 to 3 themes. Of course, it will ask you if this is right, because AI can make mistakes and you should always validate things, right? So once you confirm, we'll move to phase 2, selecting the role from your career to start story number 1. Yes, let's continue. So now I'm telling it to continue. So then it says, great, we're officially moving into phase 2, role selection. From here, we go one role, one story at a time. It's literally as if we are sitting down in a coaching session and I'm actually walking you through this, except you're doing this in your own time. And you see, I am literally demonstrating how I'm practicing what I'm preaching, friends. Like, remember what I talked about earlier when I said that you need to adapt to the AI wave, right? I am integrating AI into my coaching to differentiate myself from other coaches, right? But I'm also not telling you that I'm an AI career coach, right? Anyway, so phase 2 is the role selection. So from here, we go one role at a time, one story at a time. So the first question that it's going to ask is, which role from your last 10 years should we begin with? Okay, you can go with your most recent role, or you can go with any role. I'm just going to go with my role at Slalom. Slalom, product manager, 2000, September 2014 to January 2017. This is totally off the top of my head. I'm not looking at my LinkedIn right now. I don't know the exact dates. This is for demonstration purposes. Okay, so it's telling me we're now anchoring on product manager, Slalom. Oops, typo. Now I'm going to do what most people skip: extract scope and context. This is where strong stories are won or lost. See, the thing is, a lot of you don't talk about how big, your teams were, the scale that you've been able to accomplish. And so these are literally questions that I ask my clients when we are building the resume, and it's all in this GPT, which is amazing. So at Slalom, what was the main product, platform, or initiative you were responsible for? If helpful, answer in rough terms. What kind of product was it? Who was it for? What problem was it meant to solve? So I'm going to say and actually, you know what? I'm going to hit the microphone and I'm going to show you. Okay, so I was at Cheetah Digital, and I was overseeing a custom Salesforce platform. This was to help the client expedite the amount of time that they would put together a marketing campaign. They had more than, let us say, 50 accounts. And so this would impact all of their accounts and the end users of those accounts. The accounts comprised of, organizations like Rogers and Michael Kors and Nemus Markets. And then the problem that we were solving is what I just said, which is we need to reduce the amount of time that we launch a marketing campaign. So you see, I can just like as if I'm talking to a friend, and then I can ramble and I can press the enter button. So you see how it's going to extract all the information from the verbiage that I gave, what I'm hearing, sanity check, role product manager, company Cheetah Digital, a custom built Salesforce platform, reduce the time required to launch marketing campaigns, users' internal marketing teams at organizations across more than 50 clients, 10 engineers. And so it's taking you through the process step by step to make sure that it's going deep enough so that it's not watering down your narrative. Literally the same questions that I ask my clients in order to craft their story. Even just making sure that we're not skipping over the challenges that made the initiative hard, right? So that's an example of what this GPT does. I'm not going to go through it in more detail because I know we're out of time, and I'm happy to actually shoot a Loom that demonstrates how you go through it when you get access to it. So if you want this GPT and if you found this helpful, DM me on LinkedIn just to make sure that I don't miss you. I know a lot of people reposted, and also I have people who emailed me about this. So just so that I don't miss you out, send me a DM on LinkedIn, please, so that I don't forget about you. If you want the GPT, if you want to accelerate the process of you landing a role that's between 150,000 and 300,000, and you really love my approach in terms of how to do this, okay? I highly recommend that you book a free career diagnosis. I have very limited availability in January. A lot of people want better results in 2026. So please don't be that person who comes 3 months later when you're in a worse situation. Try to jump on the opportunity to book the career diagnosis with me. I hope that you found this, very helpful. And yes, please reach out, send me a DM if you want access, if you want 7-day access to the GPT. Thank you, friends. I hope you had a wonderful day. If you know anyone who could benefit from this, please share the link with them to this live. I'm sure that there are a lot of people out there who could use help. And thank you for being here 2 days before New Year's Day. And I hope you have a wonderful 2026. Let's make 2026 a better year for you. Make sure that you DM me so that we can get you sorted out. All right, friends, take care. Bye.